Hey guys, I am Big and Scary. I'm bringing you game 2 between Team Echo's Clockwork, our orange Zerg in the top left-hand side, and Team Echo's Crowbar, our red Zerg in the bottom right-hand side. This is game 2, best of 3. First game went to Clockwork because he used this fantastic method known as Zergling Muta. It's been around for a very long time. It was originally named Brood War. It used to be the incredible standard of Zerg versus Zerg, but then we had, StarCraft 2 came out. We had roaches, we had infestors, we had all these new toys to use, and it definitely wasn't as effective as those. But now the infestors, with their nerf, the answer to them used to be chain fungal growths, but now this is substantially more powerful, and it's incredibly popular, especially with that new buff we're seeing now that this Muta play is definitely coming back into vogue. As a bit of a downside to this, we have a substantial increase to aneurysm while playing Zerg versus Zerg, because you have this incredibly tight early game where you have the Zerglings versus the Banelings, and it's just this really tight micro fest where it's back and forth, and your entire game stands on the razor edge thin control of your Banelings. But then now we have all these Spires coming out and all these Mutas coming out, and it's doing making the mid game incredibly tight too, because it's very much back and forth, very hyper mobility. It's very difficult to deal with. And so I'm not 100% sure if I like you only having one option to go in Zerg versus Zerg. I really like the heyday whenever you could go Roach Hydra, you could go Roach Infester, you could go Nidus Worms. Everything was a possibility whenever everything was bad against Zerg. But now you really only have one option. I think something has to give. I think either we need to get better at controlling our infestors and doing those chain fungals again, even though it's a little bit harder to land them because of the projectile speed, or the Hydralisks need to be a bit more of an option, which is what Crowbar did. He was trying out that Zergling Hydra composition, and Hydras used to be incredibly powerful in Broodlord, but now they're a little bit squishy, especially when you factor in the fact that Banelings make very short work of them, which is what Crowbar showed us. And Banelings just work so wonderfully because you already have those Zerglings. They don't cost that much gas. They don't bite in too much into the production of the Mutalisks, which is really the first and paramount care that Clockwork would have, because he invested so much in that early Spire. Speaking of investing, we do have 2 hatcheries going down for both players. The 15 pool was very much the standard. Hatchery going down, both players have succeeded in grabbing their gas. I believe Crowbar grabbed his gas just a little bit earlier. You can check that out. He's got 30 extra gas. Shocking. It's really not earth-shattering. It means he's going to have his speed or his lair tech just a little bit faster than Clockwork. Definitely not going to win in the game, but it's definitely going to put him a leg up on the tech production. On the other side of the thing, Clockwork might have one extra drone because of it, and really it seems like it's a big deal, but I think both players have shown that they can definitely handle themselves in the early game. So the mid game is really what to look for. When are we going to see that Spire coming up? Are we going to see a Roach all in? What sort of shenanigans are we going to see? Because Crowbar handily lost that first match because his Hydra's Zergling composition just got torn up to shreds by all those Mutalisks. So how do you respond to that? You try something weird, and it could be that he's just going to mimic Clockwork's build. It could be that he's going to pull something out of his back pocket that he's done 100 times before, back whenever it was in vogue. Or he could try some shenanigans. So that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm always a big fan of shenanigans. Second extractor on the way, which is an excellent sign for me, especially when we don't see any gas at all. Drone production's pretty much standard. There goes the round. I was like, actually, it's a little bit behind for Crowbar. I wonder what he's saving. Negative 29 over 27. We're good to go there. Lair tech immediately starting up for Crowbar once he's got that extra 100 gas after he bought the metabolic boost. Metabolic boost for both players are pretty much neck and neck. We have the defensive Baneling nest being built by Clockwork right next to a spine crawler, again for defense. Again, Baneling nest is defensive in nature. He wants to use it as a shield for his hatchery, but also he wants to just get 1 or 2 Banelings out to deal with a huge run of Zerglings that could be leaving Crowbar's base. But unbeknownst to him, the Evo Chamber's going up at the natural. That's going to be used for upgrades. He doesn't need it for spore crawlers anymore. So yeah, it looks like both players are settling into that macro fest. We do have the third and fourth geyser being tapped. Third geyser already tapped for Crowbar, though it is not saturated. There goes the fourth too. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 different Spires being dropped down in very short order, especially because Lair is now being started by Clockwork, and almost done by Crowbar. He's got plenty of gas saved up right now. He's a little bit supply blocked, but he's got that Overlord already on the way. There goes the Spire. Where are you, Spire? It's right here, right? Okay, cool. There goes the Spire. Absolutely fantastic. And the +1 ground weapons, too. So he's going to have his own little Zergling Muta composition. And it's not a total surprise to him to see that build coming out of Clockwork in the last game. It wasn't like he's never even thought of the idea of pairing Zerglings and Mutas together. It was just the composition that he was trying was a little bit outside the box, and it fell through, so now he's falling back on something that is very standard. Very cool play here by Clockwork, pushing in with his Zerglings just to see what was going on inside Crowbar's base, and immediately scouting the Spire, getting a beautiful surround on it. Only about 70 to 50 health left. It's not going to go down, though, those Zerglings from Crowbar arriving, and it's still got a little bit of build time left, so it should be in about a little less than halfway done. On the other side, I think Clockwork's Natural is definitely well protected. 2 different spines up, as well as 4 Banelings, very well protected against any sort of aggression that could be coming out. The Spire is right out in the open at the main, and it looks like, oh, Crowbar, beautiful, beautiful positioning of his Overlord, moving down into the 3rd to scout that out, get a wonderful surround on the hatchery, and that hatchery was not canceled. That's 300 minerals lost right there. 87 resources to 650. Fantastic play there by Crowbar. And Crowbar's just showing Clockwork that, hey man, you might have done this build first, but I can do it better. He's doing a great job at handling the aggression that's coming out of Clockwork. His Mutalisk production is one cycle faster than Clockwork's. He's going to have 8 Mutas out before there's a single one coming out of Clockwork. And yeah, Clockwork is pushing with his Zerglings. He's actually getting a beautiful surround on these queens. This is a massive win for him. There goes the transfuse on one of the queens, but the other 2 get cleaned up. The Mutalisks are now out on the field. Going to be cleaning up these Zerglings before that hatchery falls. Maybe. No, there's plenty of Mutalisks there. No, another stream of Zerglings. I really don't know what's going to happen here, though the Zerglings are actually retreating. Fantastic. Good play for both players, because Clockwork was going to have to sacrifice every single one of those Zerglings, and with that would go his complete map control. On the other side of thing, he bought enough time now so that he can get out his own wave of Mutalisks to handle the Mutalisks that are out on the field right now from Crowbar. So both pretty much neck and neck. Little bit of a deficit in the favor of Crowbar, so it's 10 versus 7, but yeah, there goes another 2, so they're pretty much neck and neck. And this is cool. Check out the production tab. We have 2 different upgrades going on for air. +1 weapons for Crowbar and +1 armor for Clockwork. I know it used to be. I don't know if they changed it for Art of the Swarm, but armor was more beneficial for Mutas than +1 weapons in respect to Muta versus Muta. The Glaive Worm, the benefit for the +1 on weapons, it's outweighed by the benefit of +1 armor, just when you look at the numbers specifically. Ultimately, I don't know if that means that Crowbar is going to come out on the bottom of this, if Clockwork's going to come out on top, but it could be that because he's got that +1, he really wants to play a little bit more defensive, a little bit more dart in, do some damage, run back out, which is what Mutas are supposed to be. On the other side, I think if he goes head-to-head with Clockwork's +1 armor, force of Mutas, he could come out on the bottom of that. He could lose a substantial number of Mutas. So it's really going to come down to play style. How do you want to play this? Do you want to play it so that you run in, do some damage, and run out, go in, take some hits, and run out? Yeah, so this is just a different choice, and I don't think one is necessarily worse than the other one. It's not like it's just an insta-lose here. Those Zerglings running in were about to insta-lose to a couple of Banelings. Good control there by Crowbar to pull his Banelings back, however, Clockwork just showing you that you can sacrifice a single Zergling for a single Baneling and come out on top every single time. Check out that Mutalisk count, because that's really where the money's going to be made. 15 over 16. Pretty much neck and neck on not only the production but also the economy. 45 over 45 Harvesters, good timing there, but pretty much neck and neck on everything except for gas. Crowbar's actually up because his 6th geyser has been tapped. This is what I was expecting. I was checking on the minimap, and they've all been constructed. All the extractors have been constructed, but this one's actually not been saturated. We can check out that count of 3. So these guys are destined for that gas income, but that gas income is going to directly translate to Mutalisks. Every Mutalisk costs 100 gas, 100 minerals, and that's substantial. Definitely expensive, and it's usually going to cost you quite a lot more gas than you'd expect. And this is not uncommon to grab an extractor and a hatchery and 2 extractors, not even worry about the minerals, because it's so gas intensive, because it's Zerg air. Pretty nice back and forth. Neither player really wanting to sacrifice their entire ball because it's really hard to count how many Mutalisks you're dealing with. Neither player knows if they're numerically superior. +1 weapon on the way for Clockwork now that +1 armor has finished. But Crowbar is actually being stagnant on that upgrade, so he really wants that upgrade count. Here comes the slugging match, pretty much neck and neck. 19 over 18. Yeah, they're losing pretty much the exact same amount, but now that the it looks like the armor is helping him just a little bit, and also we saw a wave of fresh mutas joined Clockwork's force at the exact time that he pushed in, so he had a little bit of a numerical superiority, and yeah, 10 over 17 coming out on top because of that, as well as those upgrades. +1 weapons now finishing. It was interesting to see that Clockwork pushed in before that upgrade finished, actually engaging in the common ground rather than having it forced back at his third whenever he would have had that +1 weapons finishing. Crowbar realizing that he came out on the bottom of that engagement and is actually grabbing that +1 armor for himself. So it's going to be 1-1 with a bit of a superiority of the 1-1 for Clockwork. Just maybe half a minute. Maybe half him. Oh man, immediately starting on the +2, so that could be a substantial lead for him if Crowbar continues to wait on the upgrades like he did a short time ago. Clockwork playing the aggressor now that he's got the superiority of those upgrades. Could be thinking about poking in down here at the third. Could be thinking of poking down here at the fourth. Now that Crowbar has taken that, really wants to starve off the gas. The fourth has been taken. Nope, the fourth has been taken by Clockwork, and he's working on 2 different geysers, so he's skyrocketing ahead on that gas income. 800 over 650, maybe 700, and 65 over 65 harvesters. You can see how, even though they have identical harvester count, how very small the mineral income is because his gas income is so high, and that's totally okay. Totally okay. You don't need nearly as many minerals as you need for gas. You actually need pretty much neck and neck, but you can harvest minerals so much easier than you can harvest gas. So it's totally okay for him to have a very large gas income when compared to the mineral income, because that's going to be your limiting factor. These Mutalisks cost quite a lot of gas, and the numerical amount of Mutalisks is huge when compared to pretty much anything else when you're doing this sort of build, when it's this sort of slugging match. Clockwork poking and doing just a little bit of damage to the extractors and pulling out before Crowbar can actually engage, and he'd probably win that fight. 32 over 26 mutas. He's not only superior in upgrades, but also in the just sheer amount of mutas. +1 will be finishing for Crowbar's armor, but +2 armor is just right around the corner for Clockwork. So both players are being very shy with their Mutalisk numbers, but I think Clockwork right now has a commanding lead, which is very surprising because he was behind on pretty much every aspect a very short time ago. And this is again what I was talking about how paranoid this entire matchup is now. And look at that, just one quarter salvo away from taking out that fourth. Those Mutalisks so close to killing that hatchery, and that now is going to be a very large source of paranoia for Crowbar, because that hatchery is so very weak. Those destructible rocks are going to be taken out, so there's going to be a stream of Zerglings moving in here trying to take out that hatchery. Excellent play there by Crowbar, throwing down several transfuses on that hatchery, and I think that's what those queens were there for, is to support the Mutalisks with some anti-air fire, as well as doing some transfuses, but maybe it was just a desperation anti-air, just mobile anti-air. Here comes the stream of Zerglings moving down to the bottom right-hand side, the Mutalisks making their presence known up at the top right. Crowbar taking the bait, he's moving up with his with his Mutalisks, taking out a couple of the Zerglings, even though they're making their way not only to the main, not only to the second, but also to the third, cleaning up all of the aggression down at the third. The Mutalisks from Clockwork are retreating. All the Zerglings have been cleaned up at the natural. However, it looks like the hatchery at the fourth, maybe the third, is incredibly low, 88 health, even though all those Zerglings have been cleaned up. Remember, all the energy from the queens has been spent now that the transfuse have been spent. But right there is a good play by Crowbar. He's doing those transfuses, keeping that hatchery alive. If he hadn't done that, he'd be out of a hatchery. He'd be out of that gas income, and that gas income is huge right now. Definitely huge, because they're really close with the number of Mutalisks. 54 over 41 right now, heavily in the lead for Clockwork. Actually, I'm pretty surprised by that. Clockwork now throwing down some tech. He's got the +2 weapons on the way, +2 weapons on the way for Crowbar also, but Infestor Pit as well as Hydralisk Den. Maybe Clockwork feels comfortable enough to start experimenting with a couple of different builds. Queens off of creep right now. Do any of them have enough for transfuse? 2 of them do. That's okay. Quite a lot more Mutalisks being added into the mix for Crowbar, 57 total. So 57 for Clockwork, 45 for Crowbar. So with the added support of those queens, I think maybe these Mutalisks from Crowbar could come out on top, even though they're down a little bit. Both players just really do not want to commit, though, because it's, like I said, it's impossible to know, do you have more mutas than the other? You can't count them during the fight. You can just see a ball that bunches up like that, and good luck counting that. You could say it could be 10, it could be 50, I don't know. Clockwork moving down into the bottom left-hand side to poke at that third, which is incredibly weak. I don't think there's any way for him to keep that hatchery alive if Clockwork wants it dead. He is darting in with his Mutalisk, but no, he's taking out the drones. Instead, he needs to take out that hatchery. Oh my goodness. Pulling back the Crowbar, arriving in the nick of time with his Mutalisks, is counterattack going on with his Zerglings. The Zerglings are getting a surround on that Spinecrawler. Might succeed in taking it down, but no, they decide to take out the drones instead. Clockwork arriving just in the nick of time. A handful of those drones going down, 15 total, but Lord knows how many have been lost to the Mutalisk Glaive Worm bouncing around. So I think he only lost 2 or 3 in that engagement. Oh man, here we go. Clockwork being the bully. 56 over 57, pretty much neck and neck, but will the queens make the difference? 1 armor, 2 weapons for Crowbar, 2 for 2 for Clockwork. Here we go. The queen's getting surrounded immediately by all those Zerglings, taking quite a lot of damage. The transfuse going down on those Mutalisks, but only 3 or 4 of them could be spent. Check out the number. It was 30 Mutalisks from Crowbar retreating and 32 from Clockwork, so just totally a slugging match, but at what cost? Remember, Crowbar lost a lot of queens. He lost a lot of queens in that engagement, and because of that, he'll be losing some larva injects. He'll be losing some increased possibility for some more transfuses to keep those hatcheries alive. He'll have to rebuild them, and that's expensive, whereas Clockwork lost a couple of Zerglings and came out pretty much even on his Mutalisk. So I think overall that was a net win for Clockwork, but only just. It was very narrow, very small. And the resources lost tab really is confusing right now, just because, yeah, Clockwork's behind, ahead of the resources lost, but he's done so well in pretty much every engagement. He's neck and neck with the Mutalisk count. Man, every time I say that, I am wrong. 46 over 32. Crowbar with a substantial lead on the Mutalisk count. Fantastic. But this is why Clockwork has actually spent quite a lot of money into Hydralisks, which will be adding in their anti-air fire, an intimidating amount of Hydralisks, actually. But we saw how successful those Hydralisks were against Mutalisk a short time ago. The Mutalisks making their way up to the top right side, taking out the hatchery right there. Crowbar reacting very quickly with his Mutalisks, catching those Hydralisks unprotected from the Mutalisk ball, but the Hydralisks with their speed boost has repositioned themselves underneath the Mutalisk ball. Crowbar really does not want to engage this force, but whoa, 50 over 32 Mutalisks. Crowbar with a massive lead in Mutalisk count. He's going to be swinging forward, bullying Clockwork. Clockwork wants to end this right now. He's pushing in with his entire force. 19 mutas on the way. Crowbar just with a commanding lead, crushing all of those Hydralisks. Pretty much every single one of the Hydralisks is down. Only 5 remaining. 9 Mutalisks. Holy crap. Check out that resources lost tab. Oh my goodness. It's so much. So much. 50 mutas down to 30 for Crowbar, so he lost quite a lot, and only 9 mutas were left from Clockwork, but that skyrockets up to 29 because 20 mutas were on the production tab. So even though Crowbar saw how commanding of a lead he had of the Mutalisk count, he's going to be very surprised to see an equal number of mutas now chasing his. So wow, that was crazy. 50 mutas. My goodness, 2-2 versus 2-2. Check out the production tab, though. We have +3 armor going to be finishing for Clockwork. Hatchery from Clockwork does get taken out. However, at this point, it's really just gas is the limiting factor. Actually, minerals are running pretty scarce for Clockwork, but he did just blow 2K on mutas in relatively short order. He is grabbing another hatchery in the bottom left-hand side. Top right-hand side, Crowbar's grabbing his own a hatchery, and really it's just a standstill at this time. Neither player really has the advantage. I think Clockwork's going to have the advantage once again from upgrades, but he really hasn't capitalized on any sort of advantage that he's had. He's had the advantage in tech, he's had the advantage in numbers, and both time Crowbar's has held him off, so this is just incredibly back and forth. The Hydralisks were totally a wash from Clockwork. I think that would have been better spent in the Mutalisk count, but he has that Infestor Pit up. I don't know if he's got the pathogen glands just yet. He does, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of those infestors thrown into the mix. Fungal growth could hold a couple of those mutalisks there so that Clockwork can actually engage them with his entire force, while Crowbar retreats and maybe splits his force in half, unbeknownst to him that some of them are fungal growth. I think that would be a really cool play. +3 weapons now on the way for Clockwork. Remember, Crowbar has not even started it yet. He's still on the 2-2. So even though he had that numerical superiority, note that I haven't said that he's got the numerical superiority now, because I've been wrong about that the entire game. 50 mutas to 47 right now with the benefit to Clockwork. Clockwork moving up with his mutas into the top right hand side, trying to deny that hatchery from Crowbar. Crowbar really wants to secure that, not only to secure the gas income because his main's completely mined out of that, but also of minerals because his natural is beginning to get mined out, and his main is pretty much mined out. So he doesn't want to get behind on the resources war. However, he also can't get behind on the mutalisk production, which is, we see he's starting to slip. 50 over 45. A short time ago he was incredibly ahead. Huge swell of Zerglings are going to be moving in. It looks like they're going to be moving up to the natural, and the only one spot, no, going over to the right. Oh wow, nice surround on that hatchery, immediately pulling all the mutalisks. Clockwork, will he arrive in time? The drones are on hold position micro around that hatchery. I can barely click it, but only 400 health remains. The mutalisks arrive. Just a wave of glade worms knocking out all those Zerglings, but at the same time the mutalisks from Crowbar have come in down to the bottom left hand side, taken out that hatchery completely. And even though this hatchery is being built right now, it can't mine, so that is going to be a significant chunk of mining potential totally crushed. But Clockwork moving off. Oh my goodness, it's like 2 waves of mutalisks moving to the top right hand side. That is so cool looking. Check out that number, 58 over 52. Clockwork with just barely more mutalisks, but the +3 almost done. Only a handful of seconds left, maybe 40. At the same time, Crowbar was poking to the bottom left-hand side. He's got a surround with his Zerglings on that hatchery. It's going to go down. The hatchery has not been rebuilt down on the bottom left-hand side. So right now, I think Crowbar is just a little bit ahead, all things considered, economy wise, but he's got to be careful because the number of mutalisks is quickly spiraling out of control. He's behind by 9 right now, and yeah, as you approach 100 mutalisks, 9, not that big of a deal. But what is a big deal is the fact that this is going to be +3 in like 10 seconds. 3-3 versus 2-2, those mutalisks can definitely win. And then when you're behind by 9 to boot, Crowbar is going to be in worlds of hurt. Nice counterattack here from Clockwork, just a run by, trying to finish off that Spire. However, the surround is going to be knocked apart by some Banelings as well as some defensive Queens. Even though that Spire's taking quite a lot of damage. Oh my goodness. He got it within 10 health. That is ridiculous. Nice transfuse there from Crowbar, adding, I think it's 150 health for that transfuse, 125 health for that transfuse, and it's only got 138. So wow, cool play there. Here it comes. Clockwork is going to be moving in with his bully, 66 mutas onto 57, and that is +3 mutas versus +2. This is what Clockwork has been waiting for, is that money timing of the +3. Switch over to the units lost tab, 43 over 30. Oh my goodness, just look at that number plummet. Absolutely fantastic. There's the units lost tab. This is going to be it for Crowbar. He's going to have to tap out because his numbers are just getting absolutely decimated. Only 2 mutalisks remaining over 28 from Clockwork, and at this point Clockwork can just 1A into the main base. And to kick it all off, a lot of Zerglings are now in the bottom left hand side. Poor Crowbar, he played it like a pro, man. What a champ, just immediately identifying in the first round what wasn't working, and then capitalizing whenever Clockwork decided to do it himself. Clockwork mixing in a couple of the Hydralisks into it was just a bit of a mistake. I think we know now that those Hydralisks really aren't going to work when you could afford to have Mutalisks out instead. I really want to see some Infestors thrown into this mix. They're such a good unit, and they work so well with everything. And if you can have some Infestors, you could do so many different types of harassment, where you go in and throw some Infested Terrans. You can have that immobile anti-air of those infested Terrans, and then you also have that fungal growth. If you catch 1 or 2 fungal growths onto a ball this big, you could cut off 30, maybe 10 of those mutalisks to hold right there and pound on, forcing an engagement right there. And if Crowbar had that possibility, this would look wildly different, which is really cool. ZVZ is really cool. You guys are really cool. Thanks for watching. This is game 2. Unfortunately, Crowbar gets knocked out. Clockwork goes on to the next round. If you guys have a comment, if you guys want to watch another one of these games, just stay tuned. I'm sure they're going to be up in no time. I am Big and Scary. I will see you guys later. Bye.